United Nations says it is time to change the negative perception of the Sahel as the belt of extremism. Under the hashtag #IamSahel, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, has launched a campaign to change the narrative. The UN agency says it has joined hands with a wide range of partners, including youth, to transform the region and amplify the voices of Sahelians. With 65% of the Sahel population under 25, young Sahelians represent a dynamic force for transformation. This week on the program, we unpack the impact of the initiative so far and what lies ahead for the campaign. I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. And one of the objectives of the I Am Sahel campaign is to acknowledge the resilience and unwavering spirit of Sahelians. Now, to tell us more about how this is being done is Matthias Nab, the director of the UNDP Regional Service Center for Africa. Matthias, thank you very much for joining us on the program. So what exactly is the hashtag I Am Sahel campaign, and what was the inspiration?
For many years, the Sahel region has been described as an area plagued with so many crises. And so the narratives around the Sahel has been that of the portrayal of negative stereotypes, a region where conflict is rift, malnutrition, underdevelopment, conflict. And so for us as UNDP, we believe that the Sahel represents more than just these negative perceptions. Mm-hmm. And so the I Am Sahel campaign is a way for us to change the narrative about the Sahel. We wanted to use the I Am Sahel campaign to tell the story, to give a different narrative about this region that has so many potential, and to give hope to the millions of people who live in the Sahel region who actually are thriving by their own means, showing resilience, and of course, to use the campaign to also help the voices of the Sahelians to tell their own story about creativity and resilience, and how we can at least change that perception that has beleaguered this very industrious region.
So who are the key stakeholders involved in this campaign, and how exactly do they collaborate?
It's about people. And so for us, the key stakeholders are the Sahelians themselves. We know that through resilience, women in this region have always borne the brunt and successfully sustained livelihoods for families. We know that the Sahel has a region boasts of so many young people that have creative talent. And we know also that the Sahel has the potential for transformative change. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, the key stakeholders for us are the Sahelian people. The second stakeholders are to the policymakers globally, for instance, the media, international academics, and above all, donors as well.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of tracking its progress, what progress is it making so far in terms of, you've mentioned one of the areas being international donors, for instance, in terms of a policy discussion, a change in policy discussion, what progress has the campaign made?
One, we've made significant progress in terms of the reach of this campaign. Over the last few months that this campaign was launched, we have reached over 100 million people through different platforms. We have also, on the sidelines of the African Union Summit, for instance, we were able to showcase the I Am Sahel campaign, showcasing storytellers, documentary makers, and also making sure that the Sahelians themselves are telling their stories. We're also using the youth to showcase the youth of the Sahel, to showcase the entrepreneurial spirit that resides in this great region of the Sahel. And so in terms of impact, we are very hopeful that the reach is something that we can celebrate, but we also know that the resilience of the Sahelian people in terms of telling their own story brings a lot of hope. And that hope for us is something that we believe can really regenerate the transformative potential of the region.
So, Matthias, the Sahel has been depicted as the epicenter of global terrorism. How does this initiative align with other initiatives on the Sahel, such as the G5 Sahel initiative or the Africa Union's Sahel strategy?
The crisis-driven portrayals of the Sahel need to be countered, for instance, with positive narratives of potential, hope. In addition to that, the fact that we as UNDP have a development imperative. We have a Sahel offer that seeks as well to focus on 3 pillars, for instance, governance, youth, and climate change. We believe that these are all areas that can attract partnerships that can support the governments of the Sahel and the peoples of the Sahel to really realize and actually enhance these potentials in these areas, whether it's governance, whether it's taking advantage of the youth and the youth entrepreneurial spirit, and of course, tackling issues of climate change.
Right. So, Matthias, a final comment from you. What is the long-term view of this I Am Sahel campaign? And if there is one issue that you could recommend in terms of changing the perception of the Sahel, what would that be?
The long-term view is for us as UNDP to support the populations of the Sahel region and to transform their potential as we see it. I mentioned earlier that the region is home to a lot of natural resources. So in our efforts to work with the governments of the Sahel region, we will seek to actually build capacities to actually take advantage of all these resources that they have at their disposal. We also, in the long term, believe that if governments are supported to actually take charge and the resilience of the people to support that effort, we believe that the potential is great. And of course, our role as UNDP is to also enhance and structure effective collaboration with other partners to support the efforts of the Sahel region, believing that the I Am Sahel campaign, telling positive stories about the Sahel, will change the narrative and attract investments, the needed investments for the region as well.
Indeed. Matthias Nab, the Director of UNDP Regional Service Center for Africa. Thank you very much. And joining me now to look closer at the I Am Sahel initiative are from Abuja in Nigeria, Ali Bukam, economist and advocate for inclusive growth in the Sahel region. From Dakar in Ghana, Nadine Rugwe, governance and peace building advisor with the United Nations Development Program. And from Johannesburg in South Africa, Joel Kachi Benson, award-winning documentary filmmaker and producer of Daughters of Chibok, a virtual reality film on the Chibok schoolgirl kidnapping. Welcome everyone to the program. Nadine, let me start off with you here, because the United Nations says the negative perception of the Sahel is hurting the region and is undermining its developmental potential. First of all, paint for us a picture of the Sahel currently. What is the situation there and why this concern about this depiction of the Sahel region?
Indeed, there has been a growing narrative about the Sahel, and most of it has been negative because it has been affiliated to security issues and some of the political governance realities which the Sahel has been through. But like any region, the Sahel is more than one crisis or multidimensional crisis which the Sahel is facing. The Sahel is also a region which is very rich in so many ways. And I think what is important also to know is to grow the responsibility for all of us, those living in the Sahel and beyond, to project the Sahel for what it is. Rich in natural resources, rich in human capital, and rich in cultural values, and rich in the vision and ambition of the people of the Sahel. So beyond politics, the Sahel is more than politics, and it's important for us to share an integrated narrative and image of the Sahel. Thank you very much.
So when we talk about, Nadim, when we talk about beyond politics, you know, the Sahel is rich in resources and so forth. But what is that political situation in the Sahel as depicted in international media, in policy circles?
Okay, the Sahel is a region where each of the country has its own unique perspective. And I have to say that also the definition of the Sahel is different in so many ways. Like for the UN, we are looking at the Sahel as a set of 10 countries where you have low-income countries and you have middle-income countries. But you also have fragile countries which have been going through a constitutional change of government and a series of attacks from terrorist groups under the risk of violent extremism. But we also have countries in the Sahel which are relatively stable, and I don't want to cite one to the expense of the others. So when we talk about the Sahel, it's important not to focus on the region which is called the Central Sahel, but there is more than that. So there is the politics, which differs from one country to the other. When we talk about politics, we have politics as portrayed in the media, and we also have the reality as lived in the various countries, which have to be weighed out to give a very realistic perspective of the Sahel.
Ali, from an economic standpoint, negative narratives do have a direct correlation with, risk perception, reduced investments, trade, and so forth. So what has been the cost to the Sahel of this negative depiction in international media?
Negative perceptions drive up risk premiums, making borrowing expensive for Sahelian countries. Foreign direct investment tend to avoid a region seen as unstable, which limit job creation and infrastructure development, tourism, trade, and private sector growth. All suffer, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of underdevelopment. Example, Burkina Faso government burned trade at significant higher yield compared to other African countries with similar economic fundamentals.
Right. So, Joy, let me come to you because this is a matter that is close to your heart. And the representation of Africa generally, though, in global media, it has been a point of debate for many years. What are the dominant narratives about the Sahel in the media, and why does this worry you?
I would say that in terms of dominant narratives from the Sahel, it's what, if you go out and do a simple Google search, it's predominantly there's a war here, there's famine here, there are issues here, there's terrorism here. It's what's out there. I mean, my personal opinion has always been that certain narratives benefit certain interests, for those narratives to be there, because sometimes perception of a place shapes the dynamics of negotiation, whether it's for assistance or for investments and all of that. So I feel that the responsibility of balancing the narrative lies with us, Sahelians. We are the ones who should start to change that narrative before everyone else decides or not to come on board. And so I've taken as a personal responsibility that how I depict where I come from, Nigeria, the Sahel region, Africa as a whole, has to be in the most balanced light, the most honest light, but also in the ways through which I see this place. I see my place.
Right.
I see where I come from as a beautiful place, as a place of hope and beauty. And so in spite of the challenges that we might be going through right now, I choose to see the glass half full, right, and not half empty.
So, Ali, I want to get your view here in terms of the need to shift that narrative about the Sahel region. First of all, do you think there is an urgent need to shift the narrative about the Sahel region? And how do you think that changing that narrative will contribute to the economic fortunes and the development of the Sahel?
Changing the narrative is it's not about ignoring the challenges, but about showcasing resilience and potential. Local entrepreneurs plays a vital role by telling their own stories and driving grassroots innovation. With the right exposure, the Sahel can attract investors and diaspora funding. Just as you said earlier, 65% of the Sahel population are below 25 years. So the youth is the backbone of the Sahel. So investing in the youth development is key. As in the youth group and local entrepreneurs, development agencies, and media partners. I think it's very, very, very important, especially the youths.
So I want to find out from Joel, though, what is your role in this campaign? And more importantly, the Sahel, has about 65% of its population being young people. What do you see as the role of people your age and younger in this campaign?
It's sort of like a call to action of, focusing on pushing a more balanced narrative, right? When we have on the one hand these challenges that are highlighted, there should also be a forum, a platform to highlight the successes, of the Sahelians, pretty much. So personally for me, I mean, I'm a storyteller, and I love to tell stories that dignify my people and project us, in the right light. And so I'll keep doing that. This isn't something new to me. And obviously when I was brought in contact with the campaign and with the UNDP, it totally aligns with my own personal values as a filmmaker. And so it's something that comes natural, and I'm looking forward to the collaborations that we would have in sharing stories, but not just for myself as one single filmmaker, but like you said, we need to galvanize an army of storytellers, and it's in several ways, right? It's you don't have to be a professional filmmaker like me. Once you believe that as a Sahelian living in the Sahelian region, there is beauty here, there is hope here, and there is a need that the narrative should be more balanced, then everyone can come on board.
Right. So Nadine, I want to come back to you on explaining exactly how that initiative or the campaign has worked, because the UNDP says it is seeking to foster issues like political stability. You have mentioned it before, improve issues like cohesion, build trust between governments and the citizens. How is the UN going to go about this?
The UN is engaging both as part of the campaign, but mostly our work on development, if I may speak for UNDP. As you know, a report published 2 or 3 years ago highlighted that Africa in general is a violent extremism is costing African countries 97 billion annually. So you can imagine that in terms of our economies, there is a lot of losses. But beyond that, the major losses are on the human capital. In 2021, for example, out of 5,218 attacks by violent extremist groups worldwide, 26% of them occurred in sub-Saharan Africa, mostly Mali, Burkina Faso, Somalia, and Niger. And 48% of them were attributed to violent extremists. So while the region is losing its human capital, you can imagine the potential which is also being lost to that. But beyond this threat, what UNDP is doing is working with countries in the region and stakeholders to provide and develop an integrated response, which is economic, with all the programs which UNDP is rolling out to fight against poverty across the region. But we are also looking at building a strong human capital, youth and women empowerment being one of our flagship initiatives, and we've been working either through Unipods or Youth Connect Africa and a number of initiatives to promote youth empowerment, same with women empowerment.
All right, we are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we will look at some of the successes and what the future holds for the initiative. To stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Well, still with me are Ali Bukam, Nadine Rugwe, and Joel Kachi-Benson. Before the break, we looked at why the hashtag I Am Sahel initiative was launched. Let's now look at what the future holds for that campaign. Ali, you know, the perception of the Sahel has been that of an unstable and dangerous situation, which has translated to low investor confidence, sluggish economic growth, poor living conditions. So what incentives can Sahelian governments offer investors and entrepreneurs?
Ever since the Sahel is often portrayed as the epicenter of global terrorism due to escalating insecurity, particularly in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. However, this narrative overshadows the region's immense potential, from its vibrant youth population to rich natural resources. While security challenges are real, they do not define the entire region. There are also stories of resilience, innovation, and regional cooperation. The Sahel is not just a region in crisis. It is a region of possibilities where young people and entrepreneurs are reshaping the future of the Sahel. So I think what is been displayed or what is being said in the media is totally different from the reality on ground. And as I said earlier, the government of Burkina Faso and that of Mali are putting all things together, are doing all what it takes to make sure the private investors, you know, gain confidence in investing in the economy. Thank you.
Right. So Nadine, I also want to get your view on that, because how do you see Sahelian governments offering investors and entrepreneurs incentives, and how do you see this being sustained once it begins? Because as you mentioned, that there is a lot of politics that is going around.
I think there is a lot of efforts by governments and countries in the Sahel to build a suitable environment for doing business in the region. One, all the efforts which are being put by countries, including countries in Central Sahel, I think our colleague talked about Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, huge investments in maintaining those countries safe by promoting security. That is already a major contribution to attracting investment. Number two, the countries are also working on a number of indicators which are essential for investments, including expanding the energy potential in the region and energy transition, which is, I think, is crucial. And they're also working on infrastructure, building roads and other sorts of infrastructure which are essential to attract investors. But most importantly, beyond the government, we have people in the Sahel who are developing major businesses or are building up, being startup or huge investments, which could benefit from more investment from outside the Sahel and bring at scale the investment and the potential for the development of the region. So within the context of HIME the Sahel, I think it's also important to talk about the economies of the Sahel, what young people are building, what the major companies and corporates in the Sahel are doing, and use that as an example to further attract investment in the region.
So Joel, you know, media and art and film are powerful instruments in changing a narrative. How are you using film and art to empower particularly the young people and to enhance social cohesion?
Aside the personal films that I make, I'm also very big on transfer of knowledge. So I do quite a bit of teaching and mentoring of younger filmmakers and storytellers, and really just teaching about what sort of stories should we be telling, right, as African storytellers based on the continent. And so it's something that I've been doing, for a while now. I do it on a personal level and also work with different organizations, to keep sharing the knowledge. For me, I think it's about, this isn't something, it needs a concerted effort, right? So across board. And I'm glad that, on the panel here, you've got an economist, you have someone in development space, you have filmmakers. It's a collective responsibility. And so my part is just to, continue to equip the next generation of storytellers, of young filmmakers, with the tools and the knowledge to go out there and contribute their quota to changing or shifting perceptions and narratives about the Sahel.
Right. So, Ali, are there successful examples of countries that have reshaped their global perception, countries that have had better economic impact as a result of a reshaping of their global perception?
I would take a country like Colombia. Colombia overcame its image as a conflict zone by investing in tourism, tech startups, and creative industries. So that reshaped the image and the narrative of Colombia being a cartel-told country in so much crisis. Example, in the Eastern Africa, a country like Rwanda transformed its narrative post-genocide through investing in technology. These examples show that a positive narrative can unlock economic growth and attract investment. Why invest in youth inclusion, youth initiatives, in entrepreneur training. And we should remember the greatest resources of the Sahel is not it is gold or uranium. It is young people, the vibrant young people, the dynamic youth. So I think investing in the youth will change a lot.
So I'm going to get your final comments, and let me start off with you, Nadine. If you could recommend one key issue that would change perception and reality for the Sahel economy, its stability, its social cohesion, what would that be?
For me, that would be self-confidence, is to telling people in the Sahel that they are the Sahel. They are beyond the country they live in. They are the Sahel. So the narrative of the Sahel should be told by them, not by an external audience. So if we could build our self-confidence and trust to own the narrative on the Sahel and decide to invest in presenting it in a very objective manner, that would be my recommendation. And right. Join us, of course, in the Ahem the Sahel campaign.
Joel, your thoughts?
I mean, I think I'll just pretty much echo much of what Nadine has just shared. My only extra would be that, there would be need for creative collaboration, right? If creatives in the Sahel see the region as one, right? And there's cross collaboration across countries, that could be also very, very helpful in telling one unified narrative of the region. I think that if there are any initiatives that could promote that, where creatives across the different countries can find it very easy to collaborate and put out one narrative, that would be very helpful. Yeah.
All right. Ali, your final thought.
Yeah, I think with the right support, the region's young population can become engine of economic transformation and social stability. Investing in the youth, digital skills, especially the girl child, and youth-led peace-building projects, youth-driven solution are key to breaking the cycles of insecurity and poverty. Thank you.
All right, that's all we have time for on this edition of Talk Africa. Thank you all very much for being a part of this discussion. A big thank you to our guest, Matthias Nab, the Director of UNDP Regional Service Center for Africa, Ali Bukam, economist and advocate for inclusive growth in the Sahel region, Nadine Rugwe, Governance and Peace-Building Advisor with the UNDP, and Joel Kachi-Benson, award-winning documentary filmmaker and producer, Daughters of Chibok, a virtual reality film on the kidnapping of the Chibok girls in Nigeria. Remember, you can be a part of this conversation online through our social media handles on Facebook and X. You can also catch the show on our YouTube playlist. And do keep the conversation going and join us again next week for more Talk Africa. From me, Beatrice Marshall, and the team here in Nairobi. Until next time, bye-bye.